Hello, and this is a wonderful opportunity to have a conversation with Miss Shira, who is in Goa right now. Hi, Shira, how are you?
I'm good. Namaste, namaste.
What a
I'm very
fascinating
well.
background you have there in Goa.
Thank you.
And
Yes, yes.
share a little bit about what's going on in Goa for you and for the experience of India and Goa at this moment.
Well, I've been in India since like 16th of February, but I was in the north in the Himalayas and sort of really removed from all this buzz and noise that was happening around the COVID and in China. So it didn't really affect me, the COVID. It was only when I arrived in Goa, which was just literally a few days before the shutdown that we had here, which was on the 15th of March. So I must have got to Goa around the 13th or the 12th of March. And that's, I think, when I realized, oh my God, what's been going on with the world for a month? Literally, it was a month. Because you're isolated up in the mountains because we were really high up in the Himalayas. And so it was a bit of a shock to my body initially because I couldn't believe that everybody was wearing these masks and even at the airport and the security was severe and there was so much panic. But anyway, I arrived safely in Goa only to find that I'm locked now in a room without a kitchen and, without supplies, without water. And so initially it was very tough, but that was like, this is now day 12.
Let me ask you about that because lockdown in Goa it was a fascinating thought. Yet maybe share again the first few days, or even the idea of having your freedom taken away, because there's
Yeah.
people right now that are really struggling with that. And I'm aware that, like, again, you're the type of lady who's done the 10-day silent retreat with Vipassana and has worked a lot on yourself. Yet having your freedom taken away, lockdown in Goa. Perhaps share a little bit about the inner voice or the way that you dealt with that.
That's a very good question, actually. I think when one does it voluntarily, it's different, but when it's imposed, there is a resistance because it's a domination of one, and it's taking away one's freedom and liberty. So it's something different because it's imposed by an authoritarian regime. And, in this 21st century, it's not something that we're all familiar with when we're taught to be independent and make our own choices, have our own decisions, and suddenly every iota of freedom and independence and empowerment, which is the world you and I live in, it's taken away. It's radical. And you're right. I mean, I'm a yogi of many years, of 15, 20 years, and I've done Vipassana and self-imposed silence on myself, and I've delivered retreats to that effect also. So for me, it's very easy to go into that beautiful cocoon, but still, it's when it's imposed, it's different. Certainly that's where you end up going, because that's a safety net to kind of manage all of this fear mentality, and to just have the mechanisms from a biological viewpoint to suppress hunger and to energize oneself through all the breathing techniques and everything I've learned. So it was great to apply all of that, but still, it's taking away one's liberty and freedom. And yes, there is a virus, and I'm not sure what is the truth of the message and the information that's out there, whether the steps that are being taken are sort of in response to the emergency of the death rate and the mortality. Because there are so many statistics out there that saying that if you compare this to the other diseases that have caused a lower mortality rate, that the response is actually very severe and very harsh.
10 times.
So the jury is out on that one.
Mm.
But from a personal viewpoint, having it imposed was initially, I can't believe this is happening. We're in a war. And it felt like I was in a war, very much because there was no food supplies, there was no medical supplies, and you literally were locked in a room. You couldn't go out. People were getting beaten on the street. So it was tough. It was tough for me to see others that were less fortunate than myself. I still had hot water, I have air conditioning, but, it's not that extreme compared to the poor people here that literally have nothing.
Mhm.
So my heart went out for them as well. And I think that was what I noticed. The kindness of the local people was just incredible. I mean, you know, they have very little and yet they give so much. I think that was the stark contrast of all of that was like really evident. So
Mhm.
you start to appreciate these qualities of being humane much more, or certainly I did.
Well, that's I think one of the things when you visit India, it's that's one of the awe-inspiring things. Many people
Yeah,
from the West go to India to say, "Oh, I'm going to improve it. I'm going to make it better," and then they get to meet people who have so little yet are willing to give so much, and it's a
absolutely.
weird awakening for the people from the West going there and who have so much and think they're giving so much and they're really giving
Yeah,
so little, and it's such a fascinating
that's
dynamic.
that's absolutely true, TG. That's absolutely true, and it humbles you. It humbles you, um, and you recognize, as you say, that you're learning from them more than they're learning from you.
Here's a question for you, because again, that's beautiful, your analogy of liberty being taken away, because we can imagine pretty much anyone right now, whether you're in your 20s or your 50s or your 80s, a part of our liberty is being taken. The government is saying it's for our own protection. Yet, if you were to be sort of sharing with someone in their 20s or in their 80s, what would you be advising or what would you be guiding them to engage this external to allow them to maybe make this internal experience more productive?
Well, because I believe in karma, I believe that everything is ordained by a higher order. And I really firmly believe that the message of the coronavirus is actually, doesn't matter what the government is doing, but I think on a natural law level, it's an imposition by a higher power of consciousness to recognize our unity. And that unity can only be touched upon by people if they do genuinely go within and connect to themselves. And I call this the place of love, or, you know, oneself. And I believe that that is really the call from a natural perspective of the coronavirus to humanity as a whole. I think it's the earth saying, come on, there's something not right here, and you got to get it in order. You've got to get your own houses in order. So I think it's a beautiful message to send to the young ones in their 20s. I mean, I have my children who are in their 20s. You know, my son, he's a dentist, so, and firsthand he had this coronavirus, and I was devastated to find that out whilst I was here. And my daughter, you know, who's dating a radiologist, and, you know, my own ex-husband being a GP. So I'm really, and they all had it. And I kind of had a scare of it myself here. So we are coronavirus, as I say, and you know, go through all that fear and anguish about, you know, the justice, the information, the medication, etc., blah blah blah. But then you arrive at this place. You know what? There's a higher purpose here, and that higher purpose is a calling of nature to say, get united, people. You know, and these old systems that we've had in place of I mean, dare I say it, the rich and the poor, or the materialistic, you know, the monetary exchange value system that we have, that everything is a transaction. I think it's a question for humanity to really go deep within. And as I am in Goa, these qualities that they seem to have with very little, which I believe the West has lost along the way, you know, I think it's a call, and one can't really touch upon those because I've done a lot of research. I wrote a book, E to Be Successful Heart Leaders, you know, Energy to Business, asking this question of very accomplished people, 7, and I came to the conclusion that without a practice, it was well nigh impossible to overcome one's ego. And so I believe this is the call of the time right now, is to go within, connect to ourselves, and from there to emanate and find this sense of unity, and then transmit it in a love frequency of kindness and compassion, and, you know, just have a little bit more flexibility and not be so rigid in our contractual obligations. And let's allow humanity in again.
Beautiful. One of the things that is coming out in the press again, it's against the war against COVID. And we flipped that recently and started asking the question, if you had a conversation with COVID, what would COVID be saying to you?
Yeah, I think I answered that. I mean, it's a call of nature to say go within. You know, mankind. The balance is too wide now. If you don't get your own house in order, we're going to destroy it. So I think the best.
Go ahead, please.
I believe that the message is from COVID, in my humble opinion, and it is humble because who knows what the higher order is really wanting, except that the truth. And the truth is that we are all one, and the planet, the earth, the animals, and nature, all of it. And we've lost that balance. We've known we've lost that balance. And I think COVID is a reminder to address that balance. And that balance can't be addressed until we actually get our whole mind body aligned. So it's kind of a domino effect. You know, we can't do this just with our minds alone. We've tried that and it's failed. So it's high time to get our hearts connected and have empathy, have compassion, have kindness, have love for one another.
One of the things that is being mentioned is the mind, body, spirit. For the body, what would be 1 or 2 or 3 things you might recommend to our listeners and viewers today to build up the immune system, to build up the mind-body connection? Could you share 1 or 2 of the things that you're doing?
That's right. I think breathing pranayama is a very important part of it, because it's to oxygenate the blood. So when the blood is more oxygenated, then naturally you've got a higher immune system. You know, you can do Agile breathing, which is just like tightening up the epiglottis, and that removes the toxins. Also, just by doing that simple exercise, it makes a ocean sound here in the throat as you breathe.
Would you like to go ahead and try a couple, just so that our viewers can see what you mean, or hear what you mean, or experience what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's called Ujjayi. So you just basically tighten the epiglottis and you take a breath in through the nose as normal, and you'll hear ocean sound in your breathing. So what that does, it's creating heat in the body, and that heat is releasing toxins. So this virus, that's one thing. And then I believe in the love frequency. I think the love frequency healing energy is known to kill people who've got cancer. You probably heard of Caroline Myss and many other people. It's to really self-love this coronavirus in us, you know. So, as you were saying, let's ask the coronavirus what it is. And I would sort of say, rather than asking what it is, you know, it's to love it. I mean, love the virus. Why resist it? You know, anything that you resist persists, right? So let's embrace what it is that's inside us. And then I believe that loving energy, rather than that fear energy, is going to have a far more healing effect, and calling in that light on the crown, and sending and radiating it out from our hearts to all parts of our body, especially the lungs region, which is where it sits the most, and in our throats, and allowing that to sort of self-heal. But there is many things that one can do from a yogic perspective, but really meditation, by tapping into that divine source, is I would say the king above the poses. But these 2 simple things I think are sufficient. But there are many more, and if you want to, you know, you can get them. I've got online videos on this on my website. You can download those. I'm giving them away. It's 47 videos. It goes through each of the exercises one can do from an energy perspective to really raise one's own vibration.
And how would people reach out to you, or what's www can they reach out and connect with you on?
That's the water supply. It goes around in tanks here. It's www.shaktipremanand.com. Or you can go to the channel as well. I put a 7-minute free, what I call the Corona meditation as well. You do 5 minutes of closed eyes meditation, 2 minutes of open eyes transmission. And that's available as well. That's free. But the videos, 47 videos of the whole yoga program, together with the manual. And it goes through individually each pose and each exercise, each breath work, each kriya, and each energy center, so you can really apply that and tailor make that to yourself. and that's downloadable, or you can just drop me an email from the page as well.
Beautiful.
If you want to. But we work to raise the love energy vibration principally, and this is the toolkit, if you like. You know, sometimes, you know, in yoga especially, we just go straight to the toolkit and we don't really know why we're doing it. We just do it. And so I think the higher intention is like, why are we doing it? And I think that's the call of the moment. Call of the moment is unify, which is really the meaning of yoga.
Beautiful.
Unity.
One of the things that I find talking to the generation ahead of us, so the 80-year-olds or the 85-year-olds, is that when I use words like embrace the virus, they kind of look at me as if I'm crazy. So, I find that words sometimes don't work, yet the breathing, doing a 5-minute meditation or a guided meditation with my parents has actually been working wonders.
Okay.
When my father was in the hospital recently, he was having a panic attack, and we ended up doing a meditation with whale music.
That's nice, yeah.
Sounds of whales. And I thought it was only going to be like 5 minutes because my father really is not into meditation. But he ended up doing the meditation for almost 40 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so could you share some of the benefits that meditation, because again, some of our young friends, they can't stay still for more than 5 minutes. So what would be a tip or a guidance for introduction to meditation for our senior friends and perhaps our young ones?
I would say the simplest meditation is if you think of Einstein's equation, energy equals mc squared. I think a lot of people are familiar with that. And also with the fact that energy it can't be destroyed, it can only be transmuted. Yeah? So if you actually remember that you are that energy, you don't have to go into that 20-minute session or 10 minutes of sitting in silence with your eyes closed. You just remember I'm energy, and everything around me is energy, and I'm a part of that, and they're a part of me. That is by far the most simplest meditation, and anybody can do that at any time. And if everything is energy, and energy can neither be destroyed or created, it can just be transmuted, then that's a great reference point to fall back on every time you're upset with something, every time you're angry, or then you recognize that in yourself, that you're responsible because everything is your energy.
I like that. Again, even using it as a mantra, I'm energy, I'm energy, I'm energy. For someone who's got an active mind, they want to do sort of an action, yet breathing, I'm energy. It could be a very nice rhythm that somebody could get into.
That mantra is there in Sanskrit. It's called Soham. Soham means I am that, but that doesn't really, people don't get what that means. So I say I am energy, because that's easier for people to understand.
Yes.
And also it's English. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you arrive there with that connection, and it's that connection, because that will automatically connect you to your heart. And that will automatically stop all of your separation, which is where that alienation and the fear comes from. So, and it takes you straight to unity, which is the aim of yoga.
Beautiful. One of the things that I found fascinating is whenever I had conversations about this with my father, he would mock it or make fun of it. And that used to upset me many, many years ago. Yet then I was introduced to laughter yoga by Dr. Kataria. And so now when my father makes fun of it, I think that's very useful because he's just inviting laughter yoga into his practice. So it's been great. So I might introduce I'm energy to him and he'll go, I'm energy, I'm energy. And he'll be mocking it. Yet if he keeps going with it for 3, 5, 7 minutes, it will have profound effect on his body. Would you agree?
Oh, it's the route to awakening, not just on his body. It's a route to awakening to consciousness. It's a super powerful mantra. I mean, it's like going, you go straight up. You don't go through all the stages. So it comes from I mean, I won't go there, but yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about lockdown in Goa. What other things have you been doing perhaps to embrace it, and then has it spur you onto a new level of creativity or
You know, I've always wanted to to play with all this online and videoing stuff. So it's really got me out there. I've been doing Instagram, I've been doing Facebook Live. And so it's really got me to embrace that part of it, which I was resisting, like being in front of the camera more. So it's kind of forcing me to do that. But other than that, really, I mean, I love silence. You know, I hang out there very easily. But communicating on this live media for me has always been a little bit resisting it somehow. I don't know why I was. Maybe I'm shy inside, I think. And so I've been really facing my own fears around that and coming out. I'm coming out.
Congratulations. You're doing great. You're clear. Again, you've got such a beautiful, wonderful message. So yes, move on with that. Yet maybe you can also provide a little bit of a guidance to many people out there who are still very hesitant to do it. What were perhaps one of your secret formulas to just do it? What did you do, or how did you get through the barrier to start?
Well, it's, as I say, this mantra that I've just given you, I am energy, it makes you fearless.
Beautiful.
Because when you recognize that you are connected to everything and everything is you, then what's the fear coming from? The fear is coming from the identity and the ego. But when you say, you know, I'm not separate, I don't exist on my own, I exist with everyone else, and you want to contribute towards other people's lives. So it's contribution, it's sharing, it really drops those barriers and those walls, because you no longer see this ego identity, this looking good, or that you have to be a certain way, you've got to say it a certain way. You know, everything just goes because you see the other as yourself, and everything is interconnected. So that, for me, that's always been that, and that's what allows me to speak openly without having to, you know, be guarded in what I say or how I say it.
Beautiful. That's really strong, wonderful advice to people who still might be that fearful person. And then when we step through the fear, it just releases, it let go. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's I am energy. When you say that and you go there and you say that and you remind yourself that, you know, energy can neither be destroyed or created, it can only be transmuted, and all you are doing is sharing your energy with someone else. And if that's of service to them, then how beautiful is that? You know, that's all that's going on all the time.
That's wonderful. Really great. And moving forward, you got how much? You got 14 more days of lockdown, and what a great place to be locked down, though.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really complain, I guess. I mean, it is really beautiful. I mean, you know, to have the parrots and the people, as I said, the people are just so beautiful. They're so kind and so generous, and, you know, they don't take money sometimes, you know, and when the ladies sit on the side roads with their, you know, vegetables to sell, and everyone's just so beautiful. You know, they've just got such big hearts. You know, and they have nothing, yeah, well, you've been to Goa, haven't you?
Absolutely, so, you know, love it.
Yeah. So it has its own buzz. It's different from the rest of India. It's a hybrid because it was a Portuguese colony. So, you know, it has Western inputs, it has Eastern inputs, and it's Catholic, and but it's pleasant. Yeah, the weather is very hot. It's too hot, actually. So indoors a lot of the time. So,
what temperature is it?
Like 37.
37, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be like this for another month, and then the monsoons will kick in. Yeah, but I've always, you know, loved Goa. As you know, I've been coming here regularly, so for me, it has a special place. Yeah, I mean, if I was locked down anywhere in India, it would be here. I mean, anywhere else would have been hard. If it was in the Himalayas, oh my God, I don't know how I would have coped.
Tell us a little bit more about what a lockdown in Goa means. Again, most people probably have no concept of what the lockdown is like. Is it?
It means you cannot go outside. Literally, the police will come and beat you up, and all the shops and everything are closed. And so they did it really in a hurry because there's 1.2 billion Indians, and so Modi did it really, you know, very, very kind of slapdash. did it for 3 days initially, so people thought it was 3 days, and he stocked up, and then it was just bang, all of a sudden 21 days, and no one had opportunity to stock up, and nothing was available, and I think that's what was the difficulty. And so a lot of mass migration happened. People, jobs were out, and so they didn't have any income, they couldn't survive, and yeah, a lockdown here is a lockdown. It's not like in England or anywhere else where you can go out for a walk or anything like that. You can't go to the beach, you can't do anything.
So there's no one on the beaches?
Nope.
No morning sun salutations?
They're not allowed, nothing. You can't go, even go out on the street. Wow. It is serious stuff. This is India. It's not.
Well, that's what, again, most of our viewers won't really get an idea when they talk about lockdown. Our lockdown here in Brampton, Ontario, Canada, is you're allowed to go for a walk, you're allowed to go for a run, you're allowed to go for take your dog. All the food places are open. They just decided yesterday that cannabis is a non-essential, so they're not going to be selling cannabis in the cannabis stores, but that was just decided. A liquor control board is open every day. In fact, yesterday there was a 200 people lineup at 9 in the morning, and Mondays now the liquor control is closed. But our lockdowns are quite different, it's sounding, than your lockdown there in Goa.
No, this is like you're sentenced here. It's a sentence. It is, I can now see what people, Nelson Mandela, why he would, became so wise. Because what else do you do when you're stuck in between four walls? You learn to go inside eventually, and if you've had that length of time, and I guess, we're fortunate here to have the internet and access to the Wi-Fi, so otherwise, without that, I think it would be very, 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 very hard. The isolation for a lot of people, would be very difficult. But don't get me wrong, people are still very kind. As I say, because you get like the little people pedaling on their bicycles, and early in the morning before the police come out at 8 in the morning. Yes, people are trying to get around it, but it's like the little ladies on the street, on the streets with their little bags outside selling their little wares of vegetables. So people are trying to get around it the best and survive and the best they can. But it's not like the West, and it's very different. I don't know what the West is like because I haven't had it, but I imagine it's different. People tell me they can travel on tubes and trains. We haven't been able to move. We are literally stuck. You cannot move. You can't even go on your bicycle. You can't walk anywhere. You can't go to the beach. Nothing. I mean, it's been rigid. I think it had to be 1.2 billion people. If they got it, like, it would flare up. But I hear through the grapevine that it has caused a disaster in the cities like Mumbai and Delhi, where a lot of the migrant workers came from the villages, and because of this lockdown, there's been a mass migration of these poor people, apparently killing some of them who've had to walk back hundreds of miles back without transport. So there are issues that are coming through as well. It's not all great. It's severe. It's very severe. But this begs the question, like, why was this? I mean, we can't address it in your video, but it does beg the question. Like, why were these barbaric measures put in place to combat this kind of a virus where the disease and the mortality rate is not as high as they're claiming, and where people are resistant to it and they do survive, like me and my own family? So there are questions to be asked about these barbaric measures.
So as you've said, a number of your family members have had it and have cleared from it. What was their experience, and perhaps a learning or discovery from any of your relatives?
Yeah, I mean, the first one to get it was my son, because, being a dentist, so he's at close proximity. They didn't have the face mask, they only had the mask. So, NHS in England is really, didn't have the equipment. So they really put these young people's lives at risk. And my son is just like 27. So it's for me, I was like devastated, like, to hear that, because it's a war.
What did he have to do? What was the process, and is he's all clear now, or what's?
Yeah. He's come through it. Yeah, he's on I think it's 14 days. They get quarantined, and so once it's identified, and they go through their symptoms. Basically, they just go through it. I mean, it's not like they do anything. They just put you away. It's like you just put into a cell and into quarantine, and you just go through your symptoms. And if you survive and you come through it, then you're okay. Or if you don't, then you have the emergency help in the hospitals and ventilations and everything. But fortunately, he was fine. But you know, he was on his own, because that's the protocol. And he's 27, and suddenly, you know, and he's only just started working a year and a half. So you can imagine his isolation, having to deal with a severe illness. He doesn't know he's going to live through it or not. And, you know, his income's cut down because he's not working, and he doesn't understand why. There's a lot of question marks. I feel very, very, very sorry for the young 20-year-olds that are getting it, actually, because there is no support for them. I mean, their whole world life structure of everything they were educated to believe has suddenly just, it's like the carpet's been taken away from them. And everything that they had been training for, you know, this competitive, the success, so-called, and they're the ones that are really requiring assistance, and no one is out there working with them to help them through this. Because how would you reach these people? You know, they're the ones that are just starting on their career ladders, and they don't really, and they're the ones that are, I believe, are suffering the most, rather than people like myself. Or the, you know, it's these young ones that are embarking on their new careers that, yeah, they can't make meaning out of it. And I believe, like, what would you say to them? I mean, I would say to them, there's a new world order starting, but how do you begin to tell that to someone who's had a conditioned mind of material success for so many years, and who believes his mother to be a gypsy and a hippie and modern day hippie, which I'm not. But you know, it's difficult for them. It's very difficult for them to get their heads around this suddenly. It's very difficult. I think it's a real questioning on their reason for existence, like reason of being alive. What is success now? It's a big question mark for them. And what is money? I mean, all of these basic things that they had been taught to, you know,
to
admire.
cherish, admire, to strive for, to sacrifice for. And there is this shift. In fact, someone might say that they're being hugely infused with compassion, perhaps a whole new dynamic at an age that is quite different than any other generation. Whereas our seniors, they were survival after the war. In many ways, we were raised in a affluent society, and then we've passed on a society that is, it's going to be very difficult for our kids to exceed where our generation came from. So there's dynamics going on right now that truly are earth changing. And I guess when you were sharing, my overwhelming emotion was compassion for the young ones, instead of perhaps the way that they're feeling judged. They're feeling they've got to fix the world that in many ways our generation has exploited and raped and pillaged for the betterment of more hand phones and bigger houses and more TVs and bigger cars. And they're now being asked, or in many ways, they're taking over the reins of perhaps making this planet a more compassionate, loving, caring place.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they definitely, you know, being put in the washing machine. It depends what comes out, right? I mean, we haven't got a new structure in place. So, but yeah, they're in the washing machine. Let's see what comes out.
Fascinating. How about our seniors, the generation ahead of us?
My father's 84, and he was supposed to come to India. So his flights all got blocked because, you know, he couldn't travel because they'd canceled all the international flights coming to India. So he was well pissed off. But you know, I think that generation is just super strong. They're just like another breed, aren't they? I mean, they're just so strong, mentally, physically. It's that era. They're just super strong. They just handle everything. It's just like water on a duck's back for them. I always get amazed how well they handle stuff. I think it's our generation. We're sort of in that middle. You know, we're not so ruthless and not so tough, and we're not so compassionate. We're kind of that middle generation. But I think at the 80s, they for them, it's just like just get on with it.
Well, my mother's been experiencing a number of deaths in her community because she's part of the senior leadership part of the community, and she had a number of people pass over this week. So she's been calling around, and again, it brings an energy of reflection for her. It's also the fascinating part here in Brampton in Canada, because my sister's a nurse, and her fear is quite fascinating because if the seniors do get it, they get put into quarantine and no one can see them. And so many of these seniors are dying alone. Now, from a spiritual perspective, we know we all die alone. Yet from my sis, the nurse perspective, there's a real worry about if they get it, they're going to die alone. And so it's her reflection that's coming through, her worry that's coming through. And I find that that's been a fascinating mirror of the experience also.
Yeah, no, I think that's very beautifully put. And as I said before, it's really a question of nature and energy. I call it energy, but call it spirit, call it consciousness, call it oneness, you know, the eternal soul. I mean, it is a calling. There's a calling that's happening, whether people take it on board or not. It is a recognition, you know, the soul is eternal. I know it sounds really ruthless of me to say it like that. You know, but the soul is eternal. This is just one life of many. And this is a moment of awakening. It's a beautiful time, space to be born in. Whether you're old, young, or our age, you know, this wake-up call is like, wow, our souls were born to witness this. Whether that's in their 80s, whether that's in their 20s, whether that, you know, you and I in our 50s, whatever the age group, I think it's a beautiful time to be born. And it may look harsh, but there is, you know, sometimes you got to take the hard roads to just wake up.
Well, that's a lovely way to bring this to a completion. And as the sun sets in Goa,
yes, you can see.
Absolutely. The energy is just beautifully transitioned as we've learned through the yogic practices. And it's just been beautiful to connect with you. Congratulations on your move into the social media realms. Thank you so much for sharing your experience in lockdown in Goa. And
not at all.
I really appreciate it. And it's been great to connect with you. And I really wish you the very best. Would you like to share any last little?
Yeah, I can do it. Yes. I can just, if you want, I can do a little meditation if you want. A little we can do. You want to do a little Om chant with me?
Sure. Yes.
So we do the Om chant. You know,
yes.
the 3-part Om chant. Okay, so just sit comfortably and take a deep breath in. It's a 3-part yogic breath. Inhale deeply, and then exhale deeply. And then inhale, and let's chant Om. Om. Really feel that resonance of the sound in the lower belly, in the rib cage, and in the head. So it's Om as we say the sound. So let's do that again. Inhale. One last time, take a deep breath in.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for having me, Fiji. Thank you.
Have a beautiful continuation of your lockdown in Goa.
Yes,
thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. God bless. Bye.